this morning. And it's a real big class, which is exciting. So I, along with Lawrence and Grant, are really excited to go begin this class and continue with our class on spiritual discipline. Really appreciate everybody's participation, and so far it's been really good. So look forward to continuing that as we go. So let's start off with a prayer. And Jared, you may lead us in a prayer. Thank you.
Dear God and Father, we come before you at this time so thankful for our opportunity to open your word, to dwell on it, and to consider the things that you would have us to know about you and how we may serve you in this world. Ask that you'll be with Randy this morning as he presents to us, and be with us as participants in this class, that we meditate on those things and think about those things and then apply those things and embed them in our hearts to serve you and to serve others. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So, pop quiz. What are the three things, our goals for this class, as Lawrence laid out the past couple of classes? Be with Jesus. Thank you. That's one of them. Become like Jesus. Number two. And do as Jesus. Very good. So keep those in mind every single class. As we're studying at home, that's the thought process. Those are the three main goals that we have with our classes. And this week we're talking about simplicity and material detachment. So if I said the good life, how would you define the good life? And look at it maybe from the way our culture looks at it. Lawrence touched on this a little bit last class, but just in broad terms, how would you describe, quote unquote, the good life? Comfortable. Yes, ma'am.
On the world's terms, it would be affluent and having money to do anything and everything you want to do.
Affluent,
That's
yes.
the world's terms.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The most marbles.
The most marbles, yes. Whoever has the most marbles, the most toys.
No bill.
What's that?
No bill.
No bills. That would be nice. Very good. These are, things that we see, things that, the so-called American dream, right? That has been kind of twisted and put into this idea of affluency, of the most toys wins, the most marbles, things like that. Now, as followers of Christ, how would you define, again, broadly, the good life?
A right relationship with God.
Yes, right relationship with God. What's that?
Joy and peace.
Joy and peace.
Having hope.
What's that?
Having hope.
Hope.
Resting in Him.
Resting in Him. Contentment. Contentment. Very good.
Knowing Him.
Knowing Him. Yes, sir. Those are all great. Those are great descriptions that, again, is the goal of our lives, but the goal of this class right now is how do we find disciplines in our lives to further those descriptions that you all gave, to truly have a good life. So, and let's look at what Jesus says in Matthew. Most of us know this, but we can't read it enough, can we? Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So, This is very straightforward, hopefully easy for us to understand. So what is Christ telling his disciples about simplicity, about being attached or hopefully detaching ourselves from material things?
Can't take it with you.
Can't take it with you. That's right. Don't hold on to it. Let go of these things. What else comes to mind?
It holds you back.
Hold you back.
Your possessions can become a burden.
Exactly. We've touched on this a little bit. The possessions that we have, especially in our culture today, in this point in time. I mean, what a tremendous blessing that all of us experience. But the way that we look at them, the way that we prioritize them, that's where we get into these issues that we're talking about, that they become higher than our relationship with God. I ran across this quote here that I wanted to share with you, and this comes from a book called The Spiritual Disciplines Handbook. It says, Jesus teaches us that freedom is not found in having and doing, but in keeping God and his will first in our hearts. Life becomes much more simple when one thing matters most. We are human beings, not human doings. And God is more concerned about who we become than what we accomplish. So, this resonated with me a lot. And we've touched on this already this morning, the priorities, the one thing. Putting our relationship with God, resting in God. Some of those beautiful descriptions that you all have already stated, that is what it matters the most. And as we do that, and as we become, if we detach ourselves from material things, if we begin to simplify, what does that lead to? Hopefully, is the goal. That's going to lead us to a better relationship and a flourishing relationship with God and with the Father. So let me ask you, what does busyness cause? It's a very, very broad question. Don't you love these questions? Because I'm looking for something, that's on the next slide. But stress, distractions,
Your time.
time,
Misaligned priorities.
misaligned priorities,
Neglecting your spiritual life.
burnout. What was that?
Neglecting your spiritual life.
Yes, spiritual life. Tiredness, yes. Very good. So these all are great. Of course, it's not on the next slide because that's what we did. When you teach, you all know that. You're like, oh, this is what. But I stole this from Lawrence. He had a lesson that it's been within the past year, I believe. I've stolen, a lot of things from Lawrence. So, all of these things, what they do is they give us no margins, no spaces, and no openness. So if you can remember some of the lessons he gave on this topic, what does that mean? When you have no margins, you have no openness.
No success.
You have no success.
The opportunities, you can't take the opportunities when they come.
Exactly. Because you don't have the time. You just don't have the mental capacity because you've left no space for anything else. There's no margins, and again, no openness. So, on the flip side, the goal, that we should have is by simplifying, by bringing simplicity daily into our life to bring those margins, bring that openness and those spaces. So, look towards, the long goal. If you have those margins and that openness, what are you going to do with it? What should we do with it?
Become stronger.
Yes, become stronger. We shouldn't then fill it with other, busyness, other things that distract us, take us further away from God. But hopefully we take it, again, to cultivate our relationship with God, our relationship with others, and continue to strengthen our relationship with the Father, with the Son, and with His Spirit.
Randy, the quotation you made, it was about who we become. And if we have the goal of becoming like the Lord, that means we know Him. We don't know facts about Him. All of us know facts about Him. But knowing actually who He is, how He functions, and becoming like that.
Right.
I thought that quotation was great.
Yes.
And there are no margins with that.
Right.
There are no spaces. It's just, that's who we become, just like Him. That's what He wants, that relationship.
Yes. And again, go back to that being a being instead of a doing is what that quotation ended in. That we're don't be somebody who's constantly doing. That's not what, as Jay is saying, we are beings, and recognizing more of God in every aspect of our life, and knowing Him through every aspect of our life. And going along with that, it also, if we begin to simplify, is one thing that it definitely helps us with is not to take for granted everything in our lives, all of the blessings, the daily gifts that we are given. Because when you have no margins, when you crowd things out, you take for granted all of the things that God has given us and put in our lives that He is in. He's in every part of our lives. And that's one thing, I know Lawrence has mentioned this, that again, as part of the goal of this class is to see and experience God in everything we do. He mentioned last week beginning a practice of when we first wake up. If I asked you when you first wake up, your first thing you do, I think a lot of us is you roll over and you do pick up this thing and you just start checking. Instead of that, begin the practice, simplify, and as Lawrence was talking about, is thank God for being with us through the night, waking our eyes to the new day, thanking Him for what's going to be put in front of us in that day, the plans we have, the goals we have. Are they going to pray that it's going to be part of His will to recognize things? Again, these simple things as we first open our eyes. And then as we go throughout our day, again, not overlooking simple things about eating, about speaking, the relationships that we have, so many different things, walking. You can think of other ones. The relationships we have, the giving and the taking in relationships. All these beautiful things if we actually think about them and recognize them. And hopefully, when we simplify, we recognize God in these things as we go through our everyday walk of life. Any thoughts on that before we continue on?
I think one of the, I don't want to say easiest ways, but it's figuring out where your center is. If I wake up and what's Morgan need to do today? What does Morgan need to do to get X, Y, Z done, instead of having my God-centered life? Change my center to what does God want me to do? Like putting that kind of automatically simplifies things.
That's a great point, Morgan. Anything else? So here is a definition or description of simplicity that I ran across. It says, simplicity cultivates the great art of letting go. Simplicity aims at loosening inordinate attachment to owning and having. Simplicity brings freedom, and with it, generosity. I thought that was such a great description of what hopefully is our goal in simplifying our lives and detaching ourselves from material possessions. And again, this goes against a lot of, as we've already mentioned, a lot of what we are surrounded by daily. We don't see or experience in our culture a lot of letting go. We see an experience of grabbing on as hard as possible and grabbing as much and stuffing as much as we can, or as people can, in our everyday interactions and businesses. Who can we step on? Who can we step over to get our position higher? That's unfortunately what we see a lot of. But that's not of course what we're called to do. So I love this idea of letting go of certain things and being able to simplify.
Ray,
Yes.
I read a quote not too long ago. It said that a really high percentage of the nuts that squirrels bury, they never use. And that's where we get oak trees from. And so that kind of goes along with this, a really high percentage of what we earn or of what we store or what we hold dear, we never use. And we can use that to help others or to do, to further the cause of Christ or,
Yes.
any number of things. Even our time, we hoard our time to do things, for us or to do things where we can use it for others. I just thought that was a really interesting.
Oh, I like
something
that.
like 70% of the nuts that squirrels hide, they never use, and they turn into oak trees.
That's amazing. I love that. Any thoughts, Isaac?
Kind of to that point, one way that I have started trying to learn to simplify my life is not having to figure out how people are going to react to every situation, every bit of my life. Events have kind of taught me to attempt that, figure out, what is someone going to say? What are they going to argue about? How can I counter that before it even comes up? And if I give that to God, He can manage it so much better. He sees the things I don't see. He sees that effort that I might waste. He can still use. He can still grow something out of it, whether or not I do anything with it. But I'm constantly stressing over it and trying to figure out, have I thought of everything? Have I gotten every angle? And I don't need to do that. That's God's job. And so trying to learn that has already given me some peace, but it's obviously an ongoing struggle.
Very good. So what other, thinking of simplicity, thinking of ideas, practices, Isaac mentioned a good one here, thinking about even what he's talking about, potential relationships, conversations in those relationships, giving those over to God and asking Him for His guidance in those. What other things? It's again a broad question, but just thinking about simplifying. What other practices? And maybe what I'd love to hear is some of you all that maybe put into practice, as Isaac just gave us, some things in your lives. Or goals, or just things that you're maybe thinking of right now.
Randy?
Yes.
I think one of the hard things for me, like, when I was growing up, my mama showed us love. She wasn't a physical hugger, but she showed us love by gifts. And as wonderful as that was, and so nice to have them and to look at them, it's stuff. And as a grandparent, that's hard for me not to give stuff to my grandkids to show that I'm thinking of them, I love them, this will make them happy because blah, 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 blah. And so with my daughter's help, we're trying to convert gifts and stuff into memories and experiences and looking outward to others, that sort of thing to simplify. And you can take a picture and there, there's your gift, but not to accumulate stuff. We have so much stuff. And so that's kind of one way I'm trying to work on not continuing that of giving things.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else? Yes, John.
In times past, when we looked at something and said, oh, wouldn't that be great to have this? And how can we make this happen in our lives to have this? I think it helps sometimes to rest on the idea that what's associated with that material thing and how many cares are going to be involved with keeping that, maintaining that, doing that. And then some of the glitter goes away, some of the gloss kind of disappears when you realize it's just another care. It's just another thing to take you away from where you're supposed to be. By worrying about maintaining it, keeping it, all those things that you go, that doesn't make it so much as fun as the devil made it seem like it was when he wanted us to take our attention away from God.
Good point. Yes, Jim.
Back in the early 70s, I had my Bible stolen and a bunch of notes, briefcase, the car was broken into. And I thought that was kind of the end of the world for me. That Bible I'd studied out of for many years, had lots of notes in it, lots of notes, taught out of it. And I was really dismayed for quite a while. But finally, in the overall picture, having to go back and rethink those passages, I came to different conclusions, and it was good for me. Simplicity in the making.
Very good. Other thoughts? Yes, Rich.
This is completely on track with what you're talking about, but something that I read not too long ago and tried to put into practice, helping with relationships, is talks about most of the time when we're talking with someone, we listen to respond. We don't listen to understand. And taking the time to slow down and hear what the other person is saying and see it from their perspective can do nothing but help that relationship, as opposed to trying to either defend our point or prove ourselves right. That only damages that relationship.
I think that fits in with, if you think about simplifying a relationship and trying to foster that, so much of is not having your own agenda, trying to make your own point, is to listen and to truly want to have a two-way dialogue relationship. Definitely so. I put down a few priorities, practices that hopefully help us out here looking at simplification. First one, there's setting priorities that flow from loving God above all else. Again, the number one thing, the number one relationship, and then everything else is going to flow down from that and over those things in our lives. Assessing the things and activities that keep life convoluted, complicated, and confusing. Working to simplify these things. So again, thinking of the things that just complicate our lives, that really throw us into a state of confusion, and stepping back and saying, do we need this thing? As John was talking about, even before you say make a purchase, especially big purchases, take your time, make sure that it's for the right thing, and look down the road as what that is going to continue to cost you. Budgeting. Could you downsize things? Could you cut back on discretionary spending on some of that and just certain items? Again, we talked about things. We are unfortunately good at collecting things. And then the last one there, enjoying simple pleasures that require no expense. And, that one is, I think, is really important because we have the blessing to travel. We have the blessing, and there's nothing wrong with that. And to recognize the beauty of God, the beauty of His creation, and just, bask in that and glorify Him through that. But also recognizing God again in anything. Wherever you find yourself, whatever part of creation, if you're weeding a flower bed, that you're seeing God in that, in His creation, in the way that He works through His creation. And cooking meals. There's so many different things. And we're going to talk about a lot of these things as the trimester goes along. But again, recognizing God and His beauty in everything we do and everything that we experience. It doesn't have to be something grand. It's just a small, little things that make up our days. That's not insignificant to God. What we consider the mundane, the things we do every single day, that's not insignificant to Him. It might be, for some reason in our minds, we've been conditioned to think that that's insignificant, but it's not at all. And I need to retrain myself. We need to retrain ourselves to really stop believing that again, God is present in everything that we are doing.
Hey, Randy.
Yes.
That point made me think about, we just got back from a big trip and saw a lot of beautiful things. And the day after we got back, we were driving in Bowling Green during sunset, and I was talking to Annabelle, and I was just like, we've seen a lot of beautiful things in this country, but Bowling Green is beautiful. It was just a beautiful time. The weather's fantastic, and then this week Charity and I were sitting down on the back porch and just enjoying how beautiful it is, and then when we asked our kids, one of the things, what was the favorite thing about the trip, and one of the favorite things was me sitting around with them teaching them new card games. Yeah. And I was like, all those things we can do right here, so a lot less money, a lot less, work. So anyways, that's just struck me as you were saying that. I was like, a lot of simple pleasures in Bowling Green with my family that I need to be thinking about that I can do that. So appreciate that.
Any other thoughts on that before we move on? So I want to look at definitely before the end of class, and you see on your sheets there at the bottom this idea of budgeting, something that we want you to look at this week leading into Wednesday. It's obviously very important when we're talking about material detachment and simplifying. It's just this idea of where does our money go? We are all blessed with money. God has given us stewardship over things while we're here on earth, what are we doing with it? And so, I put a link on there in case you don't have a budget. Dave Ramsey, through his website, has free budget forms and other type of helpful tools there that you can just download, and it doesn't take long, but it helps you map out just where everything goes. And it's always amazing where it all goes. I mean, it is quite amazing. But it also, the goal is to help us to be like, wow, I've spent a lot of money eating out, or discretionary income has gone to whatever we choose to do. And maybe we should, again, simplify, redirect that. Here's another thing stolen from Lawrence. When money is our master, this is how we budget. What we take in, we get the paycheck, we just go live. And then we think of, oh man, I probably need to save a little bit. And I guess I probably should give something, to a worthwhile cause. And that obviously can lead to disaster. When money is our master, it can destroy us, destroy our relationships. We flip it around when God is master, when our number one priority is our relationship with Him. We start with giving a portion. We save a portion for our future, for things that we are planning for our families. And then we're able to live on what is left after that. So again, it's reprioritizing where does our money go? And when we do this is what can provide margins, as we were talking about before. This is where you realize, hey, we've got extra, and we're able to use that extra to maybe, again, save up for a vacation, something we have in our, that we're looking for in the future. So again, this reprioritization of how we are spending our money, and that's what we want you to look at leading up into Wednesday, along with the other questions, is just to be able to, put down and re-examine where our money is going. That's your homework for the week. So, and I want to finish up here with Romans 12, and this comes from the Message translation. So Paul, in writing to them, says, so here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Other versions talk about this is our spiritual act of worship. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for Him. So that's, my admonition to myself and to you all is embrace God in every aspect of our lives. And to be able to do that, we need to simplify. We need to take the clutter, the extra, and sort it out and make sure it's in its right places. And it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy for myself, but it needs to be our goal, our daily goal. And as we do that, to see God in every aspect of our life. So we've mentioned, our 3 goals for the class. And another one I thought of, and it's just a overarching goal is that we're not limiting our worship to what's in our times in this building. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a wonderful thing, but it's, as Paul's saying here, it's every part, every second of our lives. It's a daily walk, it's a daily worship, every aspect. And the more that we can wrap our brains around that and continue to think about that and meditate on that, it results in beauty, the beauty that God can act through us, through our lives. So that's what I have. Any other thoughts? We've got about a minute left. Appreciate everybody's comments. Anything else that came to mind?
He's always going to give us what we need.
What's that?
He's always going to give us what we need.
Yes. Yes, he is. He's always caring for us and giving us what we need, but we need to recognize that instead of overworking ourselves thinking it's all dependent on
Put him first,
our
and put you first.
Yes. Yes, put him first.
As Abraham, a patriarch, walked through the land of Palestine, that his offspring was supposed to have, he was continually, everywhere he went, setting up an altar and worshiping God. I'm impressed with that attitude and part of his life. Nothing, no place stopped him from setting up an altar and worshiping God.
That's a great example. And he was extremely blessed on earth. So may that be an example for us. He kept God first in everything. Anything else?
And I think the ultimate example of that is Christ. I think his ministry only lasted a short time, and he would say, I need to be about my Father's business and work while the day is here for night is coming. But still took the time to go by himself and meditate and commune with God.
Yes. Very good. Very good point. Yes.
I was thinking of Ecclesiastes, where it says there's a time for everything, and it lists them all, and then so further down it says, God makes all things beautiful in his time. And so I'm at a different season than a lot of you. And you have to look for that beauty when he sees it.
Very good. Thank you all.